I'm there's a lot of people around here that would say, oh, he's, the Mr. Natural Survivalist kind of guy, right? Yeah. I grind my own wheat. I've got a grow dome, a geodesic dome in the back that's 30-plus feet. I grow my own veggies. I've got building a nice little survival boat called a Sharpie, which is an American original design. Uh-huh. Got solar panels, generators, diesel stored, the ability to grow food. I don't have 7 years of toilet paper, but probably somewhere in that range. But hey, I've read the stories. I'm old enough that I read the stories of people in the Navy in World War II, for instance, who knew there was going to be something coming before World War II broke out, and these guys stashed toilet paper. Every time they could, they requisitioned the stuff. And then when the war broke out, no one else could get it. They were golden. They could get any part for their boat they wanted.
Yes. Use it as currency in a sense, yes?
Yep. And we're getting good. I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but everybody should be really prepared that the economic crisis has not even really started. The thing the whole concept has to be looked at. You hold your dollar. It's at the very bottom of a giant pyramid of debt that goes all the way up to this huge mountain of derivatives. Mm-hmm. And this giant pyramid of debt is falling over on top of all of us. And until we smell the last of those giant derivatives lying out there like giant lumps of dinosaur excrement, and they're all composted out, the system won't be purged and the crisis won't be over. Yeah. We have some specific indicators that it's going to get a lot worse in late November into early December, and then go downhill from there.
Yeah, great. Well, I agree with you. Let me ask you this: Did you have that survivalist mentality before you started seeing the results from your technology, or after?
After. No, I was a regular fellow. I was working for all the giant computer companies, having a good time as a consultant, flying all over the world, tweaking big databases and doing interesting software projects, writing stuff for telephone companies, and having a good time. And then I started thinking around with this because Universe told me to, one way or another, and here we are. What is it? The quote is, "My, what a long, strange trip it's been."
Yes. What a longer trip it seems it's going to be, apparently, too. Yeah, well, I gotta agree. There's definitely something not good. It's we can see it. I hate to, people kind of accuse me of being Mr. Doom and Gloom because I talk about this stuff a lot, but it's really not to get people down. It's not. Maybe on some level it could be that, like you were saying, this thought virus in a sense. But where do you separate the lines between actually, information to inform people and the doom and gloom virus spreading, if you will?
I know it's a terrible balance, and you can have awful and unintended consequences if you're too rabid about all of this and don't have it as a practical reality in terms of your viewpoint. You can get people all whipped up, magnify their emotions, other people get involved. Next thing you know, you got the whole planet waiting for a giant spaceship that won't appear, and a lot of people will be upset, and who knows, you get a terrible situation and someone who's really unbalanced and is experiencing stress does something awful as a result, and you have that karmic attachment to that. So there is a huge risk here in doing what we do, even speaking about this. We would have been better off concentrating on the market and just letting it go that way, but it's too fascinating to get out and play with the universe and how it reveals itself, and to participate in that on a positive level. Because there's the whole of it is that at my core, I'm an Aikidoist. It's a martial art that I fell in love with years ago, and it has all these really interesting metaphysical and mystical and moral components to it. And one of the things is that you have to, you're bound in identifying yourself with this art, to go on out and make a positive difference in the world. And this is kind of my way of doing that. We've had a lot of people that have saved their 401ks by listening to us. Some people have even made money as a result of taking advantage of some of the stuff that we've said. And they will not be a burden on society now, or less of. So we do have positive karma that comes. And I believe your show is actually, you get into it with a really good skeptical mind. You're not out there to promote and magnify the woo-woo emotions that are going around. So in that sense, you get a good karmic benefit, and other people that listen to you do as well. It's a tough road to hoe, though.
Yeah, indeed it is. Indeed it is, because on one hand, you either get called a tinfoil-wearing hat kook, or you get called doom and gloom, or somewhere in the middle is like, hey, great program. Something like
but
that.
But I have a particular, like I say, I have a particular viewpoint that allows me to get through it, and that is that I try not to put my belief system or create a belief system that imposes anything on reality, and just accept the fact that, at the end of life, there's this doorway, and we all go through it, and so worrying about it is pointless. Universe will do to me as it chooses, it turns out, and the only thing I have any control over is my attitude.
Absolutely.
So I cultivate my center, I do meditation, and it really does help.
I agree with that. I think that we're all in just kind of along for the ride, and you just gotta hang on tight and take the ride, because no matter what you do, sometimes it won't help you. You're gonna go
and that
through
gets back to
something.
that gets back to your doom and gloom idea too. There's the idea that you can harmonize with what universe is giving you, or you can oppose it. And I actually think a lot of people are harmonizing with a general wave they see that they're not even really able to articulate well, but they can sense it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this like giant time wave that's rolling down on all of us as we spiral into Terence McKenna's concrescence into this ultimate reality, or Kurzweil's singularity.
Mm-hmm.
And those people that are walking around saying, oh no, doom and gloom, get out of my way, I got to go into bigger and better things, are putting a lot of energy into that denial that things aren't different now. And you can see that energy is starting to fracture, and that the whole of society is changing. And unfortunately, as we all know, when we go through this personal level of understanding and awareness, that is not necessarily a good and happy time. And so those of us that have gone through that shock of awareness and the shock of the new need to be standing around for when these people pop out of that active state of denial to say, okay, calm down, people.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, indeed. All right. Other than the earthquake around the twin earthquake around December, is there anything else that you could kind of tell the listeners about that you're seeing in the data that they also should be aware of, other than the financial and the earthquake? Anything else?
Sure. Hang on just a second. Let me put on some glasses here. Got old eyes. Well, I'll give you a quick little timeline here. We've got from October 19th, maybe as late as the 22nd, through to about mid-November, we're going to get restrictions on words about the markets. Mm-hmm. That may mean that there's a whole lot of government intervention and that things are very tense. Mm-hmm. It'll still be sliding downward. From November 20th, again, maybe 4 days later than that, through to December 19th is going to be the period of the most rapid occurring new language relative to the economics. So I expect it to be very negative in the early part of winter. And if the earthquakes happen to hit, as we think, and one of them hits in the Pacific Northwest, then we might get a period of isolation, that is to say electrically and through communications, that will exacerbate the situation economically. And that relates to the December 16th, thereabouts, to the 19th maybe, all the way through to February 19th. We see that the currencies are going to take some interesting gyrations. There's going to be all kinds of volatility. So basically, that'll run through to about the end of February, first part of March. A much more extreme bit of a volatility like we saw the previous week. So today was not a good day. A healthy system does not respond by 1,000-point jump in a day, up or down, right?
Yes.
And within the whole context of things, if you go and do some reading, you can encounter in the economic sphere this guy, von Mises, who came up with this theory that at the end of our kind of time of economic cycles, a thing called a crack-up boom would happen. And so it's in our minds. It's quite possible that by the time we get to February, there might be such hyperinflation that the Dow might be at 20,000 and falling and dropping 4,000 and 5,000 every day. And that's not a healthy situation for the market, and it's kind of like you got a clock with a big pendulum that's got a big arc, and then you put two pegs in it that constrain the arc, but you don't constrain the energy. Mm-hmm. And so the energy keeps building up back and forth as the pendulum bangs on these two pegs on either side of its arc, and something's going to break sooner or later. Mm-hmm. And we think that break will occur before March in a very serious way. So our basic theory is, along with the idea of Terence McKenna, going back to the woo side of things, is that the period of time from like 1929 to, say, 1936 is going to be compressed into about 6 months. And that 6 months started on October 7th, and it'll more or less fade off a bit in early March of 2009. And you have to be prepared for the kind of shocks and scenarios that will develop in your locality. Mass unemployment, restrictions on services and good delivery because maybe we'll have hyperinflation and oil restrictions, etc.
Oil restrictions, food restrictions. I'm hearing that they're going to put a limit on how much food you can actually buy. I mean, it's
I don't know about rationing per se. Rationing in one form or another might be through price. If there's hyperinflation, maybe we might get to the point where we have hyperinflation on food more than we've seen.
Yes.
Globally, this is a very bad system because most of the planet lives extraordinarily poor compared to the people in the United States.
Yes.
Now, this gets to the point of, most of the planet lives on $2 a day or less. 2 billion people do anyway. So if we get hyperinflation in food, this is going to be a huge strain on the social contract. Yeah. We are getting indications in our data that a great many nations are not going to allow this to occur. Therefore, their option is very limited. And really what it comes down to is isolating the United States and those people that are directly pumping out the dollars, which is the homogeny of the Queen, who actually is participating and owns, Queen of England, who is participating and owns the part of the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve criminals. And they may do so by isolating the dollar